don't do something you really hate just because you want to go travel. Because then you'll be traveling, but you'll be miserable because you're constantly doing something you don't like. Find something you like to do. It's not easy, but it's doable.
Hi guys, welcome to Digital Nomad Finder podcast, where we're having conversations with nomads from all around the world about digital nomad related topics. And today we have Federica Bruniera. She is a digital nomad and she has been for the last 6 years. And for the last years, she has been living in her van, while traveling. So let's hear from her. Okay, Federica, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. It's good to be here.
Yes, and it's nice to meet you. And where are you now?
At the moment, I'm in Poland visiting my sister.
Awesome. But you've been living the fan life for how long now as a digital nomad?
Yes, so I started being a digital nomad about 6 years ago, and in the van I've been for the last year and a half.
How do you enjoy it, doing the fan life and as a digital nomad?
It's really nice. I like it especially because I get the freedom to see so many beautiful places. I really like hiking and nature, so that allows me to be just to do just that. And that's the thing I love. It's not always easy just because it's a very little space and the basic comforts of having a home, like having a good Wi-Fi that is good for it's good for work and stuff like having a proper kitchen, a bathroom, those kind of things. After a
Yeah.
while, you kind of miss them. But overall, I've been really enjoying this type of life. It requires a bit of organization. You have to know where you're getting to and if there's a safe spot and if you can work. But overall, it's really nice. I've been really enjoying it.
Nice. What about the Wi-Fi though? Because you're working online, obviously.
Yeah, so I work online, and so I usually, in every country I get to, I buy right away like a local SIM card with enough data to be able to hotspot myself even when I just need a little bit of signal and then I'll be fine. But usually, like if I have to take Zoom calls or have projects that require like stable Wi-Fi, I try to get to a town and find a cafe or a library or a campground that has like Wi-Fi. So I research that a little bit in advance if I know that have to be in a meeting or something, or if I have an important project. And so far, it has worked well.
Oh, nice. I mean, I guess what kind of work do you do for your free? Is that freelancing or do you do your own business?
So I have my own business, which is mainly freelancing though. I'm like a solopreneur. So
Yes.
I work for myself and I have a translation business. So I translate from English, Spanish, French, and Japanese into Italian, which is my native language. And it's all written translation. So that enables me to basically just receive all the documents that I have to translate by email, and then I organize my day around like my deadlines. But overall, it gives me the freedom just like to be location independent and to make my own hours. I don't have to be like respecting any office time or anything. So
How was the journey for you to be a digital nomad started?
I started as I started building like my translation business on the side while I was working in an office. I was still doing like translation, but more like project management in a translation agency. And at the time, I didn't like it. I mean, I didn't like the office environment. And so I started my freelance business on the side, and I was doing like a bit of both. I was in Canada at the time. And when I got to the point that I had like a pretty consistent workflow just from my freelance business, that I knew that I could like live out of my freelance income, I decided to leave the office. And at first, I was kind of taking trips. I still had my home base in Canada, and I would take like 2, 3 months trips around, I don't know, sometimes in Europe, sometimes in Asia. And then I decided that it wasn't worth it anymore to just pay rent for a place where I wasn't living in that much, especially because of the costs in Canada that are quite high, just like the living costs. So I left. I sold a bunch of things. I donated the rest, and then I just bought a one-way ticket to Mexico. And from there, that was the start. I just started doing that full time and never went back really.
Wow, that's awesome. So basically, you went from office life to nomad life, but doing the same thing, right?
Yes, pretty
Yes.
much.
How did you find, the transition from working office hours, location dependent, maybe having the clients ready for you, the work ready for you, to now having to basically look for your own client, right?
Yeah.
How did you find the shifting?
It wasn't easy. At first, it was a bit of a struggle actually, because I knew like I have a degree in languages and translation, but no one ever teaches you like the marketing part of
Mm-hmm.
that. I
Mm-hmm.
had no business skills whatsoever. So I'm like, okay, how do I do this thing just like to be able to have my own business? So like at first I was just like studying and trying to figure out how to build my website, or find clients, like send proposals to translation agencies, or yeah, just like put myself out there, basically sending CVs and all those kind of things. It was pretty hard at the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it was a very slow process as well. It took about 1.5 to 2 years to be able to be like, okay, I'm gonna live like and be like a digital nomad full time. So it
Mm-hmm.
wasn't an overnight thing.
Yes, I understand, because so basically you kept your normal job until you have your business established, and then until
Yeah.
you're confident with it, you left your normal job, right? I
Yeah,
think
exactly.
that's a great strategy, because I saw like so many people posting on maybe digital nomad groups where they say, "Hey guys, I want to be a digital nomad. I just sold everything and now I'm looking for something to do. What is your advice?" So I think that makes it way harder, right? Because
Yeah.
you have to live with your saving and you're trying to establish a business, and it must be tough. And even with something, when you still have your office job, it still took you 1.5 hours to finally be confident. 1.5 year,
Yeah.
I mean, sorry.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I didn't have many savings at the time, just because, yeah, I wasn't making much. And also like the living costs. I was in a country that requires a lot of money to just, get by. And yeah, I wasn't brave enough to be just like, no, this is it. I'll make the shift without a backup. And so I decided that, and I already knew that I liked my job in terms of like the translation. That's what I wanted to do anyway. So I wasn't looking for something completely different. I was just like trying to shift to a business model that would allow me to have the freedom, basically, to travel.
Yeah, so you can have should say maybe the privilege of already having the skill and just now having to transition, which is amazing. I think that's one of the things that a lot of people are struggling with, right? Because there are some things that are kind of a little bit more challenging to do online, and then nowadays they have to shift not only the life but also even the skill and the career totally. But what about you know, when you work in an office, obviously the social life is there like almost automatically, right? You have colleagues and stuff like that. I find that when you transition to remote working, you kind of have to make extra effort for the social side of it, right? Because when you go work to the office, then you have colleagues and you find friends and you talk to them, you go home and, you know, you take some rest and do the same thing tomorrow. How do you deal with that? You know, like in terms of social life, transitioning from working in an office to being on the road, like you said.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. It's one of the hardest things, and I feel like it's something we don't really talk about enough, because like you see like this digital nomad life, like the dream life, and usually like those are the things they don't tell you beforehand, like how
Right.
lonely it is sometimes.
Yeah.
And it all depends like also about like how long you're staying in a place. Like when I stay like for 3-4 months in a place, it's good enough to meet people, be it other nomads or local people, and that creates like a little bit of community. You have someone to talk to at least. Or but those times when I travel pretty fast, and sometimes because I have to be in a certain place at a certain time and I have more of a schedule, I rely a lot on online communities. That's like where like I have lots of calls with friends or other girls that work remotely, or I have a book club I participate in, or like a writing club, those kind of spaces, even if they are online, that keep me grounded and fit and make me feel that I have still some people to rely on, because sometimes otherwise it gets pretty lonely. I'm an introvert, so I'm not scared of being by myself. I can be just alone for quite a long time and not be affected by that. But still, the community is what lacks sometimes. So I try to find that online, or I just stop in a place long enough to make meaningful connections usually.
Yeah, I totally agree with that, especially, you know, when you mentioned that you're an introvert. So I think in general, everyone's needs are different, right? Maybe I'm also an introvert. I feel like only sometimes I feel like, oh, maybe I need to go out, not even talk to people, just sit in a cafe and see people. That is enough for me. So when people ask for tips, I don't think that there is necessarily a one tip for all, because it's all personal needs, I think. So
for sure. I feel like it must be, I don't know, it's just a guess. My guess is that for extroverts or people that recharge being with other people, it's probably harder, unless they have like, traveling with somebody, or have like go to places where there is a strong community. It's probably harder for them to be on the road. For me, it's more like, at times I need the connection, but most of the times I'm good with having online calls with friends, or people that matter to me, and we have like similar interests. For me, it's more like I need to talk to people that are aligned with me, not just like random people. I'd rather be by myself than to have just like tons of conversations with people I don't know, because that really tires me out.
Same, totally. I feel this exact same way. So online, you feel like it's enough for the connection as a
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's good to when get to meet those people like in real life, obviously is the ideal situation, is the best. But
Yeah.
just because we're all scattered around the world, that doesn't happen that often. But still, I feel like just seeing and talking to them, like meaningful conversations are what's most important to me rather than actually being with people all the time.
Yes, exactly. So not just being with people for just the sake of it, but actually to have some kind of meaning to it, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, I like
exactly.
that. I love that. How do you feel about like traveling? How has it changed you? Have you traveled a lot before you become a digital nomad, or it's something that you do more after you take your business on the road with you?
So I liked traveling before being
Mhm.
a digital nomad. Like in my student days, I did quite a few programs abroad. So like I studied in Italy, but I did like 1 year and in Japan as an exchange program. Then I did a few months in France and Ireland. So even like while I was studying, I experienced like traveling quite a bit. So I already knew it was something that has always interested me, but it was like slower or very short trips, like, a weekend in London with friends or like 1 week holidays somewhere else. But yeah, so like it took a bit of adjusting when I started being a nomad because I had never done like this such a long-term travel. So I didn't know what was like a good pace for me. At first, for example, I was staying in hostels mainly just because I had just started. I didn't have a lot of savings. So I'm like, okay, I can stay like in dorms with other people. It's gonna be okay. But that made me live like the backpacker life together with the working life. So I was exhausted after 2 weeks because
Mhm.
I was hanging out with people that were not working. They were
Yes.
just like out all day visiting because that was their holiday. Whereas for me, it was my life and I had to work as well. So it took me a while to find the balance and to understand that I needed slower times that, most people didn't because they were on holiday. So after that, I shifted to, having maybe like my flat for a month or, well, now that I'm in the van, I have my van. So I decide it's complete freedom in that sense. I can decide how long I want to stay in a place and decide the day before if I want to leave or not. But yeah, definitely. It was a learning curve, even just like to figure out what a good pace was for me. Yeah.
What is a good pace for you?
I feel like if I'm in a place I like, it's at least a month in that space because then I can have my routines. I can still I usually need to be in a place where there's a lot of stuff to do around, especially like nature hikes or interesting things that keep that idea that there's something new to discover. But
Mhm.
also, I need my routines. So I know that if I'm the same place, I can just do my yoga in the morning or go to the cafe to work in the afternoon, maybe take a walk in a new place for an hour or so. But yeah, 1 month, 2 months give me that grounding and that ability to keep up my routines and the novelty aspect as well.
That sounds amazing. How important do you feel like a routine is for you as a digital nomad? Because you
It
move
is,
around different places all the time, yeah.
yeah, I feel like it is very, very important to me. I'm already like a bit scatterbrained by nature. So I need the routine just like to keep myself grounded and be like, okay, today you still have deadlines. It doesn't matter if you're all over the place. Someone is still expecting work from me. So yeah, I usually do much better when I'm able to have a routine because I feel in control. When I'm traveling too fast, I'm always like thinking about the destination, where I'm going to sleep, where I'm going to eat, or all these little things, all these decisions that you have to make over the day that kind of drain your brain power and your mental energy. Whereas if I have that stuff figured out, then I have much more space for my work or my creative stuff if I want to write or read or, do normal things, or things that I like. I feel like, yeah, if I don't
Yeah.
have the routine, I'll be just like, okay, I need to get this work done because it's due today. And then it's just like always trying to respect the next deadline and I'm not enjoying the place where I am or the things that I like to do.
Nice. So having a good routine to have a sense of control
Yeah.
and to go with your day. I love that. And you mentioned that you like to go somewhere that has nature, things to do, things to explore. What have you
Yes.
ever encountered a situation where, there's this place you really want to go to, but the internet is not so good? What would you do then?
Yeah. Yeah, it's just like, I don't know, those places where you have like this expectation. And then for me, usually it's like when there's too many people, if it's a place that's too popular, it ruins it a little bit for me. I need like the quiet, the being able to enjoy nature without the crowds. So like I've been to awesome places. Like I don't know, there's some beaches in Central America or like stuff like I don't know, Machu Picchu that it's like something everyone wants to see. And then you get there and there's like just so many people and so much noise and like no, this is not what I expected. I need quiet. So I started looking for more like low-key places now instead of going like to the big destinations. I'm like, okay, I'll research a little bit. And then even if it's not the most famous stuff, sometimes you find some pretty cool things where there are not as many people.
Awesome. Do you find yourself, like travel and actually explore the culture a little bit more? Or are you more the kind that, okay, I move around, check a little bit, but still keep just my nomad lifestyle, you know?
No, I find it like it's much easier to be able to talk to the locals and to explore actually the culture of the place when I know the language, which is why like South America works well for me because I speak Spanish. And so that helps me a lot. I can go and I met like some very, very nice people. First, because like they are more, even like locals are more inclined to talk to you if
Mm.
they know they can have a proper conversation. So they're always very nice to me. And then, yeah, I'm just like really interested in how people live and what the differences are with my culture. I feel like the the purpose of that's why I'm traveling, not just like to be, oh, I've been to, 60, 70 countries. That doesn't matter as much. It's more like, okay, what experience can I take from the people I met and the places I visited is it needs to be like for me it's important to take away something, not just to be in my bubble with other foreigners all the time because that yeah, that it's not as meaningful. I could just do the same at home. The beauty of being in these new places is just that to try to understand the people who live there, their problems, their struggles, their nice experiences. So I value that a lot. Yeah.
I love that. And how do you feel like being a digital nomad, having your own business, has changed? Does it change the way that you travel compared to before you became a digital nomad?
Yes, for sure. So now, well, of course, I traveled slower, but also, like, when I was traveling before, it was usually as a student or as a person that doesn't have, I had to do it as cheap as possible. That was like the only way to do it. So now I have a bit more leeway in that sense. I have like more economic availability to be able to be like, okay, if I'm staying in this place, I'm going to contribute to the local community. So that's like an awareness I didn't have before. So I'm like, now I try consciously to give money to people who are actually locals. And I mean, it's not a big difference, but still, like, that's what tourism for me should be, like, not exploitation, just like being able to give back to the community, especially as digital nomads. We are guests in someone else's country for longer periods of times. And I feel like we should give back something in terms of, just like selecting the tours we do, if we do some, or where we go to eat, or the activities we do, just to give something back to the local people. I find so that's like probably the biggest difference, other than the obviously like the style. So slower, maybe staying for in the place for a month, staying in now I stay in campgrounds or random places, but before it would be like maybe, yeah, like a local's house instead of hostels every 2 or 3 days. So it definitely changed quite a bit. And also like now I rely massively on Wi-Fi connection. So I go where the Wi-Fi is.
Yes, yes, yes. I like the idea of, giving back because we're staying there longer and explore the culture more rather than just live in your own nomad bubble, so to speak. So I like the way that you do it and the way that you view it in general. Love that. Okay, so now I would like to ask you more of the business side apart from the travel side. So you started off, while you were still working full time, and how did you find it, like pricing your business? Was it difficult for you? Like, how did you deal with the challenge, like pricing yourself as a
Yeah, that was tricky, yes, especially because in the translation business, for some reason, like talking about money and prices is a bit of a taboo, which I don't exactly understand why. It's just like hardly anyone will tell you like how much they charge to their clients. So when I started, I had like an idea because I was working in the same field in an office. So I'm like, okay, this is what an agency charges to their clients. And as a freelancer, you stay like a little bit lower because, well, it depends really. It depends on the market. So you have to decide who you want to work for and like how high to aim depending on that. But yeah, at first I I didn't know exactly. I'm like, okay, what's the value of my work and what are my priorities? Getting a lot of work so that I can have enough money at the end of the month, but have just to work a lot, or maybe be a bit more selective with the projects I take on and ask for a price that's it's a bit higher. And I feel like at least in my industry, when you start, you're just like, give me work. I'll do it for whatever because you don't have the experience. And
Yes.
that's what companies require. And then when when I went freelance, I was at a point where I'm like, okay, I have a few good clients that I know will be with me, so I can afford to be a bit more selective, and then like get my rates a bit higher and higher, because that's like also with experience, you can afford to be like, okay, I have this much experience, I'm allowed, to bring it to the table and to offer like a higher quality than when I was just starting out. But yeah, like pricing wasn't really an easy thing to figure out in the beginning.
Yeah, so I think, and then also there's the competition, right? Like
Yeah.
lower rate from a different countries usually, and then how do you deal with that, right? So I guess what you did was that getting into the business by charging lower prices and then trying to figure out your worth along the way, and then what you want, and then like being able to charge what you're worth. I guess that's what
Yeah.
you did, right? Awesome. So any tip for anyone who is starting to be a digital nomad, especially in your field?
Yes. So like the first thing, well, from my experience, I can't recommend being just like, no, I sell everything first and then jump into it.
Yes, yes.
So I would do the transition a bit the way I did it, just like start working on it while you're still at home and have lower expenses maybe. And then just like the main thing when I talk to people is just like they tell me, oh, I wish I could do what you do. But
Mm.
they could if they really wanted to, because they're people like, I'm privileged. I come from like a pretty rich country with a strong passport, with a strong economy. So like people, I'm not saying everyone can just like afford to do it like overnight, but people with my privilege are usually stopped by fear, like fear of, because they don't know like what's gonna come, and they use that as an excuse. So like the first my first advice is just like, if you're scared, which is understandable, just make little steps, have a plan, and decide maybe first to go to places you're more comfortable with and stay a long time, just like to be accustomed to this new lifestyle. And work is not going to be easy in the beginning. You just have to work a lot to get your foot in the door. So like it's not easy, but it's doable. So like, and also my second tip would be not to sacrifice too much of your interests just for the sake of travel. Just like, don't do something you really hate just because you want to go travel. You
I love
can
that.
find something that still interests you. That, for me, that has to be the baseline. So like still find something you like to do online or while traveling and build up from there, because then you'll be traveling but you'll be miserable because you're constantly doing something you don't like. So I feel like it has to be the other way around. Start from a solid base, that something that interests you, and then everything will become easier eventually.
I love that. So you gave some solid advice. My last question would be, what is a definition of home for you?
I feel like I've been asking myself this question a lot, just because I have family in a continent, a partner in another, and I'm traveling in another. So I'm always like very torn. So in the end, home for me is where I feel at peace. So like it doesn't have to be a specific place. Sometimes it's a place where I'm by myself. Sometimes it's a place where I have people that are dear to me. but I feel like I have many homes because that's when I find a place where I'm peace at, that's my home for as long as it needs it to be.
I like that. So home is a feeling, basically.
Yes.
I believe
Yes.
that too. I believe the exact same thing. Where you feel comfortable in your own skin and wherever you are, and you can be home. I like that. Thank you so much for sharing your tips. Thanks so much for your time. So, what do you guys think about today's episode? Let me know your thoughts on the comment below. And if you want to follow Federica, I'll put her Instagram handle on the description below. I'll see you on the next episode.